Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. Today's focus is going to be easy language, and we're going to work with some practical examples that we're going to show right on the TradeStation desktop. But before we get started, we have the usual introductions and the usual disclosures. So hang on here with me while I go through them. The title of today's presentation is Creating Simple Custom Radar Screen Indicators Using Easy Language. So it is a programming class, but nothing to be scared of. I'm going to walk you through the steps on how you can modify existing indicators and maybe create some indicators from scratch. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. Always a pleasure to be here. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that we talk about is for educational purposes only. These are not recommendations of TradeStation. Also, active trading is not suitable for everyone. And past historical performance is no guarantee of future results. For additional information, please visit www.tradestation.com/important-information. All right, guys, I'm very happy to see everyone here. Let me switch over to my TradeStation platform and let's get this presentation started. I'm going to open up my RadarScreen application for just a moment. Let's open up the floor for comments and questions. If you have anything to say, use the chat window here and glancing at the chat here. And I'll do that, once in a while to make sure that I'm addressing questions as they come to our class. So let me go ahead and add a list of symbols here. I'm going to add, let's do the NASDAQ 100. Scroll to the very top. Let me remove the very top row, which is the label row for the NASDAQ 100, and the second row, which is the index symbol itself. So I'm only left with the symbols or the components of the NASDAQ 100. All right, when you open up RadarScreen, we have a set of columns that are shown by default. This is not the way that I usually, pull up my RadarScreen. There are columns that I don't look at many times. For example, bid, ask, high, and low. Even though I do find that it's, great information to look at. If you're doing some technical analysis, maybe they're important. But for the most part, what I do is I remove columns and then I add the ones that I need. I'm going to highlight those 4 columns, then right click and remove. There we go. You can see how RadarScreen has this snaking functionality where if it has enough space on the right-hand side, it'll duplicate your list of symbols, or it'll do a continuation of symbols. It doesn't do a duplication of symbols. It just continues. So I have 1 through 37 right here on the left-hand side and 38 through 74 on the right. I'm going to add a column here, one of the default columns here. So let's start with a study that is supplied and is built into the TradeStation platform, and we'll think of ways in which we can make that study better and provide us better information in terms of what is it that it's trying to tell us. Something very simple like a moving average 2-line indicator. Okay, so this is the moving average 2 lines. Let me go ahead and add it. And I'm going to move it all the way down. All right, so this is the moving average 2-line. I'm not sure if this is the default one, but it's okay. It'll work. What I want to show, though, here is that the moving average 2-line indicator doesn't really tell us the direction that the moving averages are showing on the screen. Are they bullish or are they bearish? Now, if the fast is above the slow, you would say that we are in sort of a bullish mode. But if the fast is under the slow, then we're looking at a bearish mode based on the moving average 2 lines. Let's go ahead and pull up a chart. I'm going to reduce the size of my RadarScreen. If it wants to, let me bring in this edge of RadarScreen to the left-hand side, and I'm going to add a chart analysis to be here on the right-hand side, and we're going to just add the same indicator on a chart. So moving average 2 lines. Okay, just my hand is a little bit, or it's working a little bit faster than my computer. Let me go to here to studies, add studies. All right, and we're going to go back to the moving averages, and let's add the 2-line moving average so we can get a visual of what the indicator looks like. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this chart to my RadarScreen using the S's right at the very top. So when we click on a symbol like Apple and we look at what's happening here on today's data, we see how the fast moving average, which is a cyan line, is crossing under the magenta line. Now, this is happening right now on the current bar, but that's not reflected right here on my moving average 2 lines. I mean, I can take a look at the 2 values. One is 187.95 and there's 188.12. So I can see that the fast is a little bit below the slow. So it's turning into a bearish mode at the moment on the current bar. This is a 5-minute chart, by the way, but it doesn't, I mean, from the radar screen indicator, I don't get that information. On the two lines over here, since I see the two lines, I can see that they're crossing, and I'm entering a sort of a bearish mode for this moving average signal, correct? So let's go ahead and modify this indicator so that we can get a little bit more information as to what is the market trying to tell us. And for that reason, we need to go into the EasyLanguage and start to make some modifications. Let's go ahead and modify the default EasyLanguage of the moving average to line. Let's go ahead and right click on the column header. This is like the easiest way that you can access the moving average EasyLanguage, or the EasyLanguage for any study per se. Just right click on the column header if it's a radar screen indicator, or right click on any of the lines if it's a charting indicator. From here, I'm going to go to studies, and I'm going to edit the EasyLanguage for the moving average to lines. All right, I'm not going to make changes to the original code because I want the moving average to line indicator to be or stay the way that it is for other uses. So I'm going to create a copy of this. I'm going to go here to the file menu, and I'm going to click on save as. And I'm going to save this as, well, first of all, I'm going to add my initials at the very front. I do that for multiple reasons. You know, sometimes I want all the customized indicators to be grouped together. This is like putting my stamp on it that this is something that I modified, and I don't want it to get mixed up with the other studies. So a lot of times I do @JN, which is those are my initials, or I do @MC if I'm creating an indicator for RadarScreen. So let's do @MC instead, since we are in masterclass, and I'm going to, then this is moving average, 2 lines, masterclass, and I'll add these 2 letters at the very end because this is specifically designed for RadarScreen. Hopefully I haven't used that name before. If I have, EasyLanguage will tell me. Let's go ahead and click OK. Okay, perfect. So it hasn't been used. You can see that on the tab, I'm working on the indicator that I just created. The original one stays without being, modified, which is recommended if you're going to start, making modifications to studies. First thing that I do is I simplify my inputs declaration statement because it just takes up too much space here at the top of my document. I can do that by removing the tooltip functionality that has been added to every single EasyLanguage code. This piece of code, starting from that square bracket that says display name, all the way to the other square bracket, is functionality that was added to EasyLanguage. It allows you to hover over an input, and it tells you exactly what is right here inside the quotations. Enter an EasyLanguage expression to use in calculation of shorter length moving average. Well, it is a tooltip. It's just telling exactly what to do. Now, for the indicator that I'm creating, I don't need tooltips, because since I'm the creator of the study, I know exactly what inputs, what they do. So I'm going to remove that piece of code for each one of the inputs that are here. It'll just simplify the view immensely for me. I don't need to see all of that. Okay. And in addition to that, I don't need to have these stacked on top of each other. I can just create one single line for the input declaration. The same for the variable declaration. I don't need 2 lines. I do need the 2 calculations here. It's calculating the fast average and the slow average. Here we're looking at displacement. A lot of the indicators in TradeStation have a displace kind of feature that allows you to move the study forward or backward. For a RadarScreen study, it doesn't apply because it doesn't do that. It only moves it in a graphical type of setting, like a chart analysis. So I'm going to remove displace and just leave the current bar greater. Well, I don't need that either, because this is also referencing the displace. So let's go ahead and remove all that and just leave the plot statements by themselves. This is the alert criteria for the study, which I can leave here. It'll only be read if the alert is enabled. You can see the alert enabled, but I have to remove an end because I had removed an if then begin at the very top. Okay, let me remove this copyright. And this is just my simplified indicator. Let me go ahead and verify this. And I do verify because I deleted a whole bunch of stuff. And before I even continue working on the study, I do a verification just to make sure that I didn't remove something that was crucial and needed for the indicator to verify. So do that on a continuous basis just to double check your code before you go so much further into the code that it'll be a headache to find where the error is. Okay, so we have the two calculations. This is plotting the two moving averages. So let's go back here to my TradeStation platform, and this is plotting the two calculated lines. One number for the fast average and one number for the slow average. The numbers here, important, but not as important as, the mode of the EasyLanguage indicator. Are the lines bearish or bullish? That's what I'm trying to determine, right? So let me go over here to my EasyLanguage. Let me remove these two plots. And the way that I do that without deleting the syntax is by adding a set of two forward slashes right in front of the line. You can see that as soon as I did that, it turned the whole line green, because that's considering it a annotation, like a text annotation, like a comment. So anytime that you want to have your EasyLanguage be skipped or ignored, you can just do a double forward slash at the very beginning of the line, and it'll just comment out that whole line. I'm removing those two plots because I want to create my own plot, and this will be plot 3. I'm going to use plot 3 because plot 1 and plot 2, even though commented them out, I can still come back and enable them. And I don't want to have a conflict between the plot numbers. So you cannot use the plot number multiple times within the code unless they're conditional, like inside of an if-then statement. So on plot 3, it's going to plot the AVG mode. I'm going to create an AVG mode. Notice that I'm just typing here a word that I just made up in my mind, but I'm going to calculate it and define it. First, I have to declare it, and then I have to define it. So this is AVG mode. Let's do AVG mode, which is the label that is going to go on the column. So what is AVG mode? Well, bullish or bearish. For that, I need to create a variable that is going to contain a text variable. Now, text variables are very interesting because you can supply whatever type of word you want the indicator to display. So I'm going to, first of all, declare it. So AVG mode. Then the way that you initialize a text variable is by putting a set of, these are not semicolons, these are quotation marks, double quotation marks, okay? So I have here these two that are above the comma right here on the keyboard. So quotation marks, you need 2 of those, and then close the parentheses. This is telling EasyLanguage that AVG mode is a text variable, and whatever you're going to put in it will be inside quotations as a text annotation. It's a very interesting type of variable because most of the time we look at numeric, like the fast average and the slow average, that have a formula and they return a number. So those are the numbers that are plotted here, plot 1 and plot 2, and it's able to plot that number because the variable is numeric. But if I want to plot a word, that word being bullish and bearish, the variable needs to be a text variable. So once I have my variable declared, I have to assign it. The same way that we have the 2 numeric variables here assigned or explained, I need to do that same thing with AVG mode. Now, AVG mode is going to have 2 words. So let me go ahead and create a little bit more of a conditional type of statement so that we can say, well, if this is happening, AVG mode is going to be bullish. But if this other thing is happening, AVG mode is going to be bearish. So that's going to be inside of an if, then, else statement. If AVG mode, if fast, we're going to use exact same word up here for fast average. So if fast AVG is greater than slow AVG, then AVG mode equals bullish, right? Else AVG mode equals bearish. That's what we were talking about. This is a conditional statement that if something's happening, then it's bullish, but if it's not happening, then it's bearish. If you verify that, of course, that verifies successfully. So that AVG mode word that we created, this text variable, is going to contain the word bullish or bearish based on the direction of those moving averages. Let me see how this indicator looks in comparison. I haven't made any more changes here. I want to, put it on RadarScreen just to see how it looks. I'm going to go here to my platform. Let me remove net change here as well. Well, the way the market's up, you can see that most of the NASDAQ symbols are all green, except for a couple here, which is a relief. let's go here to my indicator list, and I'm going to look for that indicator that I just modified. It's at MC moving average 2 lines RS. I'm going to go here to the at symbol where the at MC are located, and I'm going to add the moving average 2 lines RS. I'm going to add it, move it down, and then click OK. Okay, there you can see it. That's my indicator. Now for Apple, I know that it's a bearish mode because the fast is below the slow. Now let's look at a bullish one. AEP, it's bullish, and you can see how the fast is above the slow. So this is clearly letting you know which symbols are bearish and which symbols are bullish based on the moving averages and the location of those averages. Of course, I can modify this indicator to be a little bit more enhanced in terms of what it's telling us by adding some color. Let me come back here to my code, and I can say, I can add additional actions here, and I can say begin. So AVG mode equals bullish, and we can use a word in EasyLanguage that is called set plot BG, BG color. Okay. Notice that the word turns blue. The blue words in EasyLanguage are reserved words. And you need to make sure that when you type this word, it comes blue. Otherwise, you made an error. Blue just means that EasyLanguage recognizes it. I'm going to set the BG. BG stands for background, by the way. And I'm going to set the background of plot number 3, which is the column that we're adding. And I'm going to set the color to, when it's bullish, to dark blue. Notice that dark blue is also a reserved word, and it comes up in blue. And then I'm going to do the other then, else, begin. And we're going to do action here, which is assigning the bearish, set plot BG color. By the way, EasyLanguage is not case sensitive. It doesn't matter which letters are capital, which letters are lowercase. It doesn't care. And if it's bearish, we're going to do a dark red for those that are going down. And then in that very end here, we type in an end. Then begin, end, else. I think I need another end here. End, else, begin. Let me see if this verifies. Study not verified, semicolon expected here. Let's do another semicolon here and verify. There we go. Now it works. Now we've added this additional type of styling that makes the indicator switch color based on the direction. Let's see if the color gets applied automatically. Sometimes indicators have to be reinserted or re-added to the radar screen for it to take on some of the changes we make. For this particular change, though, it seems that it's working, and I can see that anytime that we have a bearish condition, it's red, and anytime we have a bullish condition, it's blue. Does that make sense? So taking an indicator and making it work for you, it's something that it's simple and something that you can do on TradeStation. Now, if you wanted to keep track of how long this indicator has been bearish or how long has it been bullish, because that's another thing, you know? Yeah, these are bearish and bullish, but how long ago did it cross? Like, for example, in Apple, yeah, we are in a bearish mode, but we've been on a bearish mode since 20 minutes ago. That's 4 bars. It happened 4 bars ago when the crossover happened. You know, that tells you how recent the crossover happened or how likely is it for the trend to change again. So here in the code, we can set up a counter, something very simple. Like first of all, we have to come back here to the variables so that we can start a variable counter. And we can say that my counter is going to be called bars ago. And this is a numeric variable because it's just going to be a number. But this is going to reset at the crossover. So instead of using the alert criteria here, let me go ahead and remove some of the wording here so that I can simplify the calculation. If the fast average crosses over slow average, then let's remove the alert. We're going to do bars ago equals 0. Okay. Else, if fast average crosses under slow average, then we do the same thing here. Bars ago equals 0. So what we're doing here is that we are do we need this end at the very end here? We don't need it anymore. So what we're doing is we are resetting the counter anytime that there's a crossover. That way we can reference back. This is not a begin. If fast average crossover slow, then bars equals 0. Else, if fast, I needed to remove that semicolon at the very top. There's never a semicolon before the word else. So this are resetting the counter to 0 when the crossover happens. So you can always look back and say, hey, what's the counter look like? If the counter says 5, it's because the crossover happened 5 bars ago. Does that make sense? Excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and now we said we need to count the bars anywhere, right? I'm going to do it right here. Bar count, bars ago is going to be equal bars ago plus 1. So this is the counter that happens every single bar. You know, it adds 1 every single time you get a new bar, and then it gets reset when the crossover happens. Let me verify this. All right, and let me go back to my. Oh, I need to plot it. If I need to see it, I need to plot it, right? So let me do plot 4, and we're plotting bars ago. Let's verify, and then go back to my radar screen. All right, so this looks weird right now because it has, first of all, it has decimal places. I wanted this to be more like an integer. And also, it doesn't make sense that all these say 3. We already said that Apple is about 4 already. Well, even more right now because it's been more than 20 minutes. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's been 5 bars since it crossed. But this is something that happens on radar screen indicators that you have to be aware of, and you need to modify in case you need to. Radar screen indicators, just to give you a little bit of context here, radar screen indicators will only load enough data to perform a calculation. And for cumulative type of calculations, you'll need to force radar screen to download more data. This is a counter that keeps track of a number, just adds 1, adds 1, adds 1. But if you don't load enough historical data, it doesn't really know how far ago something happened. Let me go here to show you where that setting is. I'm going to go here to the column header, studies, and I'm going to edit the moving average 2 lines for all symbols. All right, here, I'm going to go to the general tab, and this is where the setting is. You see where it says load additional data for accumulative calculations, and it says additional bars to load are 2. So in addition to the current bar, it loads 2 more. And that's the reason why most of these say 3. You see no symbol here that's more than 3 because it only has 2 bars to count. So we need to come here and make that something significant. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a 100 here and then click OK. There's not a default here. So you have to do it on each one of the indicators. Okay, you can see that some of the numbers are coming through. Apple did happen, 3 bars ago. Let's see. That happened 1, 2, 3. It happened on this one. So maybe it's not counting. It doesn't count the current bar. 1, 2, 3. But it didn't quite happen on that one. It happened on the prior one. That's an interesting one. Let me go ahead and reload Apple. Okay. See, now it's showing 4. Not sure why it wasn't. If you want to refresh the whole radar screen, just highlight the symbol, click on the symbol header to highlight all the symbols, and do Control R. It just reloads. There we go. Now I see some variation in the numbers. It reloads all the data and it gives you the right calculation. A lot of times, TradeStation may be stuck with some values that are saved in your hard drive. And whenever you see some data issues, I was seeing some numbers that didn't quite jive with what I was expecting. So a Control R forces TradeStation to ignore the data that's saved on your hard drive and loads everything from the server again. And if you see that, if you're seeing some calculations not happening, then reload. So here we have a AEP that's bullish, and it's been bullish for the past 15 bars. And you can see because the crossover happened 15 bars ago. Now, I don't need the decimals. The decimals is something that you can modify in the code or right here in the indicator. Right-click, Studies, edit the moving average. You go to Style, bars ago, it's going to be a number that has no decimal places. So decimals, drop those to 0. I'm going to just click OK, and there we go. Now it's just a simple number. Of course, you can do it on the indicator side, which will be the default. Just right-click, go to Properties. This is right-click on the EasyLanguage code. You go to the chart, the grid style, not the chart style. Bars ago, chart style, it would be to change the style of the plots on the chart. Grid is for radar screen. And the grid style for bars ago, it's a number. Drop the decimals to 0 and then click OK. Once you do it here instead of the EasyLanguage code, you have to verify the code one more time, and that's it. Now, every time you add it, it's going to be just like this. But this gives me the ability to sort by bars ago. And if you double click on the column header, you can see that a lot of these have crossed recently, 1 bar ago. For example, CPRT, company called Copart Incorporated, you can see how the crossover happened 1 bar ago. So if it was a current crossover, you would see a 0, but none of the symbols that make up the NASDAQ 100 have crossed or are crossing right now. This is on a 5-minute time frame, by the way. But you can see that all these crossovers that happened recently are bearish. One is bullish, that's CCEP. And you can see that this particular symbol has had crossovers back to back in the past or today's trading activity. So there's not a clear trend. A lot of times you're able to identify those companies very quickly. Here it's a company ANSS, which is ANSYS Incorporated, that's been bullish since the beginning of the day. We had a crossover of those averages at the beginning of the day. And you can see that right now, the pricing activity for this corporation, it's kind of moving sideways with a little bearish tone to it. And that's why the moving averages are getting closer. And we may be looking at a crossover very soon, unless the price continues to go up. But you can see activity like this lets you know that, oh, these are securities that have crossed, 23 bars ago. In this case, it's 23 5-minute bars. If you're looking at a daily bar, it would mean 23 days ago, but it's just a 5-minute bar, an intraday analysis. Now, if you wanted to change this into a daily analysis, of course, you can do that. If I click on all the symbols by highlighting or clicking the column header, I'm able to change the time frame here to daily, and it changes the calculation here of my indicator to daily bars. I can do the same thing here on my chart and change it to daily. Now, let me go ahead and sort by symbol. If I go back to Apple, Apple is giving me a bearish signal on the current bar, on the current daily bar. Even though we had a bounce from the close of yesterday, the current bar is a down bar, and the moving averages are crossing right now on that first bar. Let me go ahead and double click on bars ago to see if we see any zeros. Yeah, no zeros on this particular analysis. But we do get some that are bearish. We're showing a bullish signal. GILD, Gilead Sciences, had a bullish signal 2 bars ago. Based on the chart, we had a back-to-back. But this is not a back-to-back. It happened a few days separated. But now we're getting sort of a bullish signal based on, how is this bullish? Oh, it is bullish because it happened bullish a few bars ago. The price activity, this price activity that happened last week, of course, made the moving averages cross to the bullish side. Then the market tanked. Right now, it's kind of recovering. So we're not really sure what's going to happen to the security. But it does allow you to see indicators that are built into TradeStation from a different perspective. Now you modify it's the same code. We're looking at a fast average versus a slow average, but the way that we're interpreting the indicator has changed. And now we have a study that we can modify, and it gives us an enhanced analysis where we're able to tell, what's happening to some of these securities. Okay. All right. Now we can start, indicators from scratch. We can modify anything we want on the TradeStation platform. Let's go ahead and create something quick. I know we have about 10 minutes in class, and I wanted to create an indicator that keeps track of, let me go back here to a 5-minute chart, and I'm going to do the same thing here, that keeps track of the closing prices of the bars, closing prices that are higher or closing prices that are lower. Okay, go ahead and go to my EasyLanguage and see if I can show you this indicator very quickly. So I'm going to go here. This is going to be a new indicator. I'm going to call this @MC. Let's call this streak. So streak, just keeping track of a streak of higher closes or lower closes. And this will be streak for RadarScreen. This is not for chart analysis. I'm going to check chart analysis and then click OK. And the basis of this indicator is very simple. If the close is greater than close 1 bar ago, then I'm going to create a counter called up count equals up count plus 1. Now, we're going to do a similar calculation if we have lower closes. And it's going to keep track of the streak of lower closes. If the close is less than the close of 1 bar ago, then, and let's do down count equals down count minus 1. Okay. Now we need to reset these numbers somehow so that we get the right calculation. Now the reset, if the close is greater than close 1 bar ago, then up count equals up count plus 1, else up count equals 0. Now, this is the way that we're resetting. As long as we have a close that is greater than the prior close, it's going to continue to add 1 to the up count. But as soon as the condition is not true, then it'll reset it to 0. Does that make sense? Let's do it also for the negative side. We're going to do -1. It's going to create a negative number when you have consecutive lower closes. But then if the opposite happens, then we're going to reset dn, sorry about that, equals 0. Verify. Okay, so the first thing is we need to declare these words that we're using. Okay, so variables is my declaration statement. I am using a word called up count, which is a numeric variable, and I'm using a word called down count, which is also numeric. Those are the two words that I'm using. Let me verify. Okay, so verification is successful. All I need to do here is plot. If the plot statement is going to be something like if up count is greater than 0, then plot 1 is going to be up count. And this is going to be called streak as our indicator name. But we're going to do an else statement because if up count is not greater than 0, then we're going to do plot 1 equals down count. But give me the negative number because we already determined that if up count is not greater than 0, it's because we are in a down count. Does that make sense? So let's see if this works. Let me go ahead and verify this. It's a simple way of keeping counters and keeping track of events. Yes, I'm going to send you the code, Rich. If you can, could you send me an email and I'll copy the code and paste it there? Let me go ahead and put my email address here so that you can have it. You can send an email to education@tradestation.com and I'll copy the code into that email for you. This is the streak indicator. Let's go ahead and see if we can put it on a chart, on a radar screen. Let me go here to TradeStation. Let me go ahead and remove this one that is the default moving average. Let me go ahead and add it right here to the very end. Okay, this will be called @MC streak, right? For radar screen. I'm going to add it and then click OK. All right, so we have some numbers that don't really, we were not expecting. A lot of these numbers are ones. Remember, why are they all ones? Because remember that indicators in radar screen only look at the minimal amount of historical data. So for this indicator as well, we have to go back to studies, edit for all symbols. And right here on the general tab, we have to load additional data for the calculations. Notice that by default, this feature is turned off and it only loads 1 bar back. And that's all that it remembers. We need to load more data. But I'm going to do it here in the front end. I'm going to do it in the EasyLanguage. So it's the default setting. I'm going to right click on the code, go to properties, and on the general tab, I'm going to load additional bars for calculation, and I'm going to set this to 50. Even more, I can set it to 100. Remember that the more bars you add, the longer the indicator will take to calculate because it has to load a lot of historical data. But nowadays computers are very fast. So if you see any issues, it's because you probably loaded too much data for RadarScreen. Let me go back here to my radar screen, remove the study. This is one of those adjustments that we did on the configuration that doesn't come back automatically to the study that we added. So we need to remove the study and add it again. So let me remove and let me add it one more time. Okay, now we're getting some numbers. So if we look at, let me just make this a little bit, If we look at Apple, for example, Apple for 3 consecutive bars has been up. And we can see it clearly here on the chart. So higher close on the previous bar, higher close on the previous bar, and then higher close on the previous bar. It's a streak of 3. Anything that is a negative number, for example, here we have 80 Autodesk. The closing price is lower than the previous bar, but not lower than the bar before that. So you see that it's showing those numbers. 0 is whenever you are resetting the value. That happens, whenever you have an opposing number. A lot of times this may need a little bit more configuration because let's talk through a scenario. If you have 10 consecutive higher closes and all of a sudden you have a closing price that is at the same price of the previous bar, which is not really higher, but it is at the same price. Would you consider that part of the up count or would you reset to 0? Because maybe you have other following bars that continue the streak. So that's a decision that you need to make. This indicator, we are resetting anytime that is not greater than. So That's something to keep in mind, So for example, you can say if the close is greater than the close 1 bar ago, or this is the condition that I'm talking about. Up count is greater than 0 and close equals the close 1 bar ago. My editor is running really slow. Okay, so you have two conditions. Yeah, whenever the close is greater than the close 1 bar ago, count. But if you are in a positive count, meaning that you're greater than 0, and you have a close that is the same as the close 1 bar ago, still counted as 1. So you don't break the streak just because you have a close that is equal to the close 1 bar ago. And we can do the same thing here on the other side. Or in this case, it would be down count is less than 0, meaning that you're in a negative streak, and the close equals the close 1 bar ago. If that is the scenario, I want to count that still as a streak on the downside. Okay, let's see if that helps us. Okay, I'm just going to verify this, and let's go back here to my radar screen. I didn't see, major changes. However, let's go look at Apple. Apple is still showing 3-4 consecutive higher highs, but this allows you to also sort and rank. If I double click on the header, I see for T-Mobile, I see 3 consecutive lower lows. If I double click again on the column header, I see a stock like Datadog has 6 consecutive higher highs. Is that telling us something? It's just interesting information, If you have these stocks that are out of the ordinary and are showing a significant price movement in either direction, those are stocks that we probably need to pay attention to. All right, that's my class for today. We created this very quickly, so if you need access to the code, again, just email me at education@tradestation.com if you weren't able to make the notes, and I'll be glad to share that code with everyone here. Thanks again for your time. Thanks for your support of the TradeStation Masterclass. Look at our events calendar, please. There are a lot of topics that are upcoming on different asset classes. We have classes on options trading, classes on futures, and also futures options. So make sure that you look at the events calendar and see if something catches your eye. It's great seeing you, all of them. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and I'll see you in my next class. Goodbye, everyone.